Hi, welcome back to another episode of Fire Riot Education. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about fire extinguishers, why you need to have one in your home and possibly even in your vehicle. Now, there's really only one kind of fire extinguisher that I would recommend buying for domestic use, which is this one here. Now, fire extinguishers are identified by colored bands on them. For example, a white band is a dry chemical powder extinguisher. Other colors like a black band is a carbon dioxide, a blue band is foam, and if there's no band and it's just red, it's water. But for domestic use, it's best that you buy a white band. Now, the reason for that is that a dry chemical powder extinguisher is usable on any kind of fire. The only kind of fire you wouldn't want to use it on is a cooking fat or oil fire, and that's where a fire blanket should come into use. We've got other detailed tutorials about how to actually use a fire blanket on the channel. There are a range of different sizes of fire extinguishers that you can buy, but for domestic use, a 1 kilo is probably what you're after. You need to be aware though that you're only going to get about 10 seconds of use from one of these, so it's very much a band-aid effect. If you actually need to use your fire extinguisher, there's a few steps you need to follow to use it safely and effectively. Now, there's a common acronym which is called PTASS, which stands for pin or pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep at the base of the fire. I do think though that we can go better and add a T into that acronym, which changes it from P, pin or pull, to T, actually testing it before you use it and before you enter that room to extinguish the fire. By testing it, it's going to remind you that 1, it's working, 2, it's going to give you a visual of how far it's actually throwing, which is going to give you a good idea of how close you need to get to the fire and is it actually safe to do so. And then you can still go with aiming at the base, squeezing and sweeping until it's fully discharged, and then ringing the fire service. Of course, remember that you are not obligated to do anything. In the event of a fire, if you feel safe to do so and you have the appropriate equipment and training, then of course you can try and extinguish the fire if you think it's safe to do so. But if you don't, evacuate your house and ring the emergency services as soon as possible. Before you go to use your fire extinguisher, or while you're maintaining it, have a quick look at this valve here. Now, if the arrow is in the green, it means that it is good to use. If, however, it's gone into the red, it means that it is no longer appropriate to be used. Once you've emptied the fire extinguisher and fully discharged it onto the fire, the next step is to ring the fire service. Even if you've extinguished the fire, you need to call the fire service. We can come out and make sure that the fire is extinguished and that it hasn't spread anywhere, using our thermal imaging cameras and other equipment. The lifespan for a fire extinguisher is about 10 years before they tend to go into the red. And the recommendation is here in Australia that they get serviced every 6 months. But if you're not doing that, one thing you can do is just to turn it upside down like this, and it actually agitates the dry chemical powder within it. And this can just help loosen it up so it doesn't end up over time compressing and compacting on itself, making it unusable. I mentioned that a white band indicates it's a dry chemical powder extinguisher, but there's also some other indicators on here that tell you what kind of fire you can actually use it on. You can see these green squares indicate different fuel types. For example, this one here, which is also referred to as a Class A, is wood and plastic fires. Here we have B, which is a fuel fire, and this is still okay to use, and then E is electric, and this is still okay to use. Remember that if you are going to try and use a dry chemical powder extinguisher on a cooking oil and fat fire, it is your last option, but you need to approach it from at least 3 meters away to make sure that you're not too close with too much pressure coming from the extinguisher, which will just spread that fat and oil fire. If we approach from an appropriate distance of over 3 meters, we might be able to get a nice layer of that dry chemical powder that sits on top of the fat and the oil, smothering it and starving the fire of oxygen. If you'd like to purchase a fire extinguisher for your home or your vehicle, you can find it at any local hardware store or fire safety store. Even some grocery stores may have them for sale. What you're looking for is one that meets appropriate standards for where you live. For example, this one here meets the Australian standards. Thanks for watching the video today. I hope that now you understand what kind of fire extinguisher you should buy for your home or even your car. And now you understand how to use it and what kind of fires you're able to use it on. If you have any questions about anything we've discussed, please let me know in the comments section. You can also follow links to more detailed tutorials about some of the topics that we've discussed in the links on the screen.